What's the best steroid to use if you're first starting a cycle? John says, what's up guys, Derek, moreplateSmartEats.com. Today we're going to be reacting to Jon Skywalker's recent steroid Q&A he did. So a bunch of people DM'd me it. There was a lot of different questions asked in this thread. I haven't looked through it yet, but it looked like there was a shit ton. So like I just quickly perused over and saw there was over 2,000 comments. So I figured this would be worth touching on. You know, a big influencer in the space who's one of the very few individuals who's very open about his use and tries to use his platform to be educational and use the knowledge he has to try and guide young guys who see him as an inspirational role model in the right path and whatnot, and to not fuck themselves up. So, you know, a lot of people do see this guy as like a bad role model too, because he's sort of like glamorizing gear. Like at the end of the day, a lot of these guys in this industry are going to do it regardless. So I feel like taking the approach of trying to teach kids how to not fuck themselves up and how to be proactive about getting blood work, echocardiography, etc., would be wise in order to prevent, you know, premature deaths in this industry and whatnot. So I'm not too like opposed to him like opening up this thread on his Instagram to open up the floor to questions and whatnot. And I figured I'd just go through it and see if I have any input or any, I don't know, differing opinions and whatnot. Okay, so we are on his page. Let's see. His notably in his description, the first thing it says is "ain't no role model." So anyways, this is the thread here. This is like a physique update, I guess, of him in the gym. Now he says, ask me any steroid related question. 2,230 comments. So let's get into this. Top comment, Sush bro. John, how do I make my nips bigger? Please help. Very urgent. He says, more try and smoke weed every day. So obviously this is a joke, and but that would certainly you know, help. If that was that would certainly contribute to gynecomastia development. So anyway, let's see the first one. Milan, what should a bruh with decent genetics expect from my TRT dose of 280 milligrams of test prop a week for like a year at least? So many things wrong in this fucking comment. TRT, as in a lifelong intervention for somebody who's hypogonadal, is a lifelong commitment, not something you do for a year. And TRT replacement, there's no fucking way you'd produce 280 milligrams naturally. So he's pretty much saying, what do you think about a year-long cycle? That's like literally what he's asking. Let's see, I'm gonna expand all the comments here. John, 15 and 20 pounds of muscle, I'd say. Assuming this is this guy's first cycle, maybe. Probably not though. You will see benefit from that, but a year on test, no matter dose, you're going to be shut down very hard and might not bounce back natural test levels. Since you've only been lifting a year, I'd say give it at least one. Only lifting a year, dude. Like, yeah, man, like definitely take more time. 280 milligrams of test isn't a TRT dose. That's a cruise / cycle. It's not a cruise if he hasn't taken shit. That's an actual cycle. So TRT dose of 280 milligrams a week. Too much, bro. You look far too young to be on TRT anyway. Or is this way better for you to say you're on gear without anyone turning their nose up? Yeah, holy shit, this kid's 18. Like, no, dude, like chill out. 280 milligrams of test prop for a year. Like your first cycle should not be even close to that long. Like that's fucking excessive as hell, and that's not TRT. That's a ridiculously drawn out blast that is definitely not warranted for where you're at, and you should not be touching anything yet. Let's see, Martin lifts. Not a question about gear. Which steroid had the last side effects for you? John, they all have sides. Yeah, it's true. All compounds can have sides. Obviously, that's not really answering the question. I guess he's asking personally, which one do you tolerate the best? And John doesn't really have a answer to that. So anyway, as far as me, if I was to answer that, you know, the most broad spectrum, well-tolerated compound of all, testosterone. You know, obviously from a hair loss context, it's not the best, but everything else is like kind of the ideal, at least in a therapeutic replacement context, which will be like, obviously when you get to this super physiological territory, you can argue about which compounds are better and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, like the base androgen is kind of what I think everyone should kind of base their protocols around. at least their base, like base their protocols around as in that should be your base the majority of the time, except for very, very niche situations. So I don't know, the broad spectrum fucking testosterone makes the most sense to me for the majority of people. Are SARMs worth it, and what age should I start? That's like the most incredibly general, non-specific, no background information question. John, don't start SARMs unless you're over 19 or 20. And honestly, if you ain't scared of needles, just go straight to test. So I did a video a while ago on like, I forget what it was called. It was the number one thing you need to know before you start steroids or something like that. And I basically laid out the knowledge bank you should accumulate before you even look at anything that can be suppressive of your HPTA. Like, it's not just about hitting an arbitrary age. It's also about hitting a level of training and diet, knowledge, but as well from the pharmacology aspect. Even if you're 30, if you don't know shit about pharmacology and endocrinology, it doesn't matter that you're 30 and you've like passed the arbitrary age where you're like allowed to take gear without getting shit on by people. Like, it would make more sense for a guy who knows how to not fuck themselves up, who's 25, to get on something than a guy who's 35 who doesn't know anything. Like, just because you're arbitrarily hit some number in age, it doesn't mean all of a sudden you're responsible and know what the fuck you're doing. So I don't even go by the age thing, really. Like, I think most people in their teens should avoid it. Obviously, you should wait until you're like fully an adult. But after that, it's like the arbitrary number should not exist. It should be based on specific situations, as well as your tolerance to risk, as well as how educated you are. Let's see. What steroid would you say gave you personally the most gains? John says, just test and watching the diet 100%. Crazy stacks. John, what are you running now, G? Just test prop. 350 to 500 milligrams per week, presumably. See, it's interesting how he uses prop so much. Like, I don't know if that is because he thinks it's drier, so he can get it in and out of his system quicker if he needed to lower the dose because he ends up exacerbating his gynecomastia or something. I'm not saying that as like a bad thing. The guy openly talks about his gynecomastia all the time, by the way. I'm just saying that's actually a strategy some people may deploy, administering more frequently to avoid like giant bolus dosages that increase aromatization rates, etc. So like presumably that would be the reason. Like, I don't know, to be honest. Like, why would somebody on TRT want to be using a short ester above a long one when you know you're going to be on it forever anyways? Like, I don't know. Let's see. Yoav Sharabani. What steroid can get you shredded as fuck? Personally, I would say anabolics do not burn fat directly. I guess they can enhance it to some extent, but at the end of the day, it's basically how much muscle is on your frame and your energy expenditure. That's what's going to dictate what goes on. And in a calorie deficit, whatever compound you're on is going to help you retain muscle, hence allowing you to burn more fat indirectly. But it's not like one is like inherently way better for fat burning than another one. There's some argument that can be made for that, but in general, like when it comes to muscle preservation, nitrogen retention, etc., it's not like they're dramatically different. It's more so the satellite interactions they drive that can be different. How much glucocorticoid antagonism do you want? How much volume do you want to drive? How much broad spectrum energy systems do you want to enhance? Like, are you trying to enhance your hematology profile for some specific sport? Like, there's a myriad of different goals that should be compound specific rather than just, if I just want to get shredded, like you can do that with fucking anything, dude. Anyways, so John says Winstrol, which is like a classic like cutting compound, and it's more so because it can dry you out, but it's not like it inherently burns like a shit ton more fat than another compound that would otherwise, retain your muscle in a calorie deficit and allow you to get peeled while holding onto your tissue. Like, it's not like it's some special fucking cutting thing. No steroid makes you lose fat. Diet and cardio gets you shredded. DHT derivatives like Winstrol will make you look drier and harder if you're lean enough. Like, it's basically accurate. Clen is on a steroid, buddy. You don't know anything about gym or nutrition. I do know. I was just joking. You can know what you want, but at the end of the day, you still look like shit. Jesus Christ, this is a rough comment section, dude. What are your test levels at the moment? Current power level is probably around 3,000 to 5,000. So presumably nanograms per deciliter, and he's like talking like he's like a DBZ character. That's funny. First cycle, D-ball plus test. Okay, is he asking what was his first cycle and he says D-ball plus test, or he's saying what should be your first cycle? I'm assuming John would not suggest D-ball plus test is the best first cycle, because that that's like gyno city. Like that's probably what led to him like developing the gyno to begin with. Like having two compounds that are literally very potent substrates for aromatase stacked on top of one another is like a recipe for disaster. Especially when you're first getting into this and you're probably dirty bulking too and gaining excessive amounts of fat. The amount of aromatization you're getting simply by the amount of fat you're holding on top of two compounds layered on top of one another that are heavy substrates for aromatase, the amount of estrogen conversion you'd be getting out of that would be fucking astronomical. And that's likely why a lot of guys who get into these, the newbie forum bro protocols, first cycle, like kickstart your test with D-ball to get the gains going in the first 4 weeks. Like those guys end up with fucking gyno and shit like that. Don't forget ADEX. I got nippy at 300 milligrams when I started. Fuck's sakes. Let's see. Should you run an Austrian only cycle before running your first test cycle? No, I wouldn't. That's fair enough. Let's see. When are you going to start tren again? Maybe after I remove my gyno? Man, how do you remove your gyno? Surgery. You got any good tren stories? Uncle John? It seems like a small amount. I thought it was more. $2,500? No way. It's way more than that. Yeah, like $4,500. My bad. Okay, so anyway, he presumably is trying to avoid 19 NORs while he has his gyno because the progestogenic activity of Trenbolone can significantly upregulate estrogen receptor expression. As far as I know, I used to think that it was actually an upregulated aromatase and it would increase the amount of estrogen you convert, but it seems more like it interacts at the ER itself rather than via significantly upregulating how much estradiol you produce via your testosterone. So it's a bit convoluted and there's not like there's a clear-cut answer on what the progestogenic activity actually does downstream, but we do know some of these progestogens can actually inherently activate estrogen receptors on their own, so they're kind of like estrogenic in their nature even without interacting with aromatase, and then through their activation of the progesterone receptor, they can have downstream cascades that lead to interaction with the estrogen receptor, the aromatase enzyme, and things of this nature that ultimately at the end of the day in practical application, we see a significantly upregulated estrogenic burden via the introduction of things like Trenbolone and Nandrolone. And this is like partly where Decadic comes from. This is partly where presumably, and there's like other things that it's a lot more complicated to kind of work around 19 NORs. Like it's more, requires more intelligence sort of even to know how to manage the side effect profile of them, because it's not as simple as something like a DHC derivative, which you introduce and it kind of just like, you can predict that it's going to lower the estrogenic burden, inhibit estrogen-induced RNA transcription at the receptor site. Whereas with the progestogens and the 19 NORs, you're kind of just like ballparking, like, am I going to get like fucking gyno from this? Is there going to be a spike in prolactin? Is there going to be progestogenic activity at the progesterone receptor? Is there going to be an increase in estrogen? Do I need to increase my AI? Do I need to use like a fucking pramipexole? Do I need to use vitamin B6 super dose? Like, what do I need to fucking do? And it's like, it's a lot harder to figure out what to do with those compounds. Let's see. What's the toll on your physical and mental health right now? No bullshit. Mental health been peaking 2020 because I'm off all the other nasty shit I was taking. Okay, well, that's good. I'm 14 and want to take MK. Would there be any serious side effects? Bro, don't be taking anything at your age. You just need to eat healthy and stay hydrated. This kid's like, fuck off. I want to get taller. You will ruin your natural testing your health. Don't, bro, wait. So yeah, my advice would also be to eat enough to like as much macro and micronutrients as you can, train like relatively, like train and like fucking focus on growing and just like don't take drugs that you don't understand is basically the end of the day. Like, remember how I said, how do you know if you're ready to introduce something into your system? And it's if you know and are educated about it. Like it would not be a wise idea in your teens when you don't know anything about this shit to introduce something that could interplay with your GH-IGF-1 axis if you don't understand what you're doing. And frankly, you probably shouldn't be using it at all if you're not GH deficient, because it's like, do you know how to predict what's going to go on with epiphyseal plate closure or anything of this nature? Like, you're kind of just ballparking, throwing some shit in, hoping it's going to make you taller potentially, without understanding the pharmacology. So if you don't have the green light from a doctor really to do this shit, like, I would probably not personally. And like, obviously, good luck finding a doctor who will actually do this shit. But I mean, like, there are doctors out there who deal with like GH and IGF-1 deficiencies and whatnot, and like kids who have had like stunted growth and are like not progressing at the rate they should. Like, those are the guys you should be seeking out for this kind of stuff, because it's very, very niche, and expecting some random person on Instagram from the fitness industry to answer your questions about you during your fucking development phase of puberty is like not the best way to go. What's the best steroid to use if you're first starting a cycle? John says, just test, but I'd wait till 20 to 21. So, yeah, here everyone's saying, test E, blah, 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 test. This guy says 300 tren to, okay, this guy's obviously trolling. So anyway, as far as just test, like, I would probably agree, you know, for literally like the hormone your body knows exactly what to do with. It already endogenously produces and relies on entirely, and has different mechanisms in place to regulate physiologic functions based on this base androgen. It knows how to 5-alpha reduce it into tissues where it needs it. It knows how to aromatize it in the brain, the heart, etc., maintain bone integrity, build muscle. It knows exactly what the fuck to do with test, whereas it doesn't know what to do with a lot of these synthetic compounds. So, you know, test makes a lot of sense as a first cycle. As far as age, though, it goes back to the arbitrary age thing. If you're 21, just because you're like of age, it doesn't mean like hop on tests. Like, learn how it works. Like, learn what to expect. Learn what a PCT is. Learn how to read your blood work. Learn what the fuck is going to happen when you use it. This is all stuff you need to know before you start injecting something into yourself. What age you think you're going to die at? What a fucking morbid question. What was your first cycle? Oh, D-ball and test D. Okay, yeah. So he was not suggesting that your first cycle should be test D-ball and test, because he mentioned here just test in this thread, and then here he says his first cycle is D-ball and test. So indeed, earlier he was talking about his first cycle, and I wouldn't be surprised if that was the beginning of his gyno development. Wow, this guy is a dick. Bro, there you have a little of gynecomastia with a nice symbol and a sad face at the same time. It's like, do you think he doesn't fucking know, dude? Like, Christ. Let's see. Ever getting rid of gyno? No hate. He says, yeah, probably surgery soon. Have you experienced hair loss while taking gear? He says, nope, twice. And the second time he said it got 29 likes, but the first time only got 2. So yeah, anyway, John has like premium fucking hair genetics, because he literally blasts Masteron out the wazoo and never gets any, no visible hair loss yet. Now again, he has a thick mane, and it may indeed be thinning and it's just hidden underneath the volume, and you can't actually see what his hairline looks like. But, you know, to even get it to that volume in the first place, you need a fuck ton to deal with to even get it to that point. So I wouldn't be surprised if his hair is like pretty immaculate and he's just genetically blessed. Unfortunately, everyone has their own like genetically blessed things and their own inferiority. So it's like with John, he has gyno, unfortunately, but then he has, you know, like no hair loss. Whereas, you know, some guys I know who it's like the complete opposite, you know what I mean? So anyway, what do I need to take to look like this? Testosterone and P90X. Let's see. Do you cycle or do you blast and cruise? Blast and cruise. First time cycle, protocol, and PCT. I'd say something like 350 mgs per week for 12 weeks. Standard PCT of Novadex plus Clomid 4 weeks following. So that's not horrible. However, the mention of the PCT is kind of like, there should be more detail into that, in my opinion. Like, as far as when to start it, look at the half-life of testosterone and enanthate, and then see when it's actually cleared out of your body to a point that introducing PCT drugs actually makes sense. Like, does it make sense to start it 12 weeks, after 12 weeks, followed by a 4-week PCT immediately thereafter? It's like, no. Look at the half-life of enanthate. Even if you wait 2 weeks, that's not enough time for the hormone to clear sufficiently out of your system. Wait 5 half-lives, and then you start your PCT. So how many days is that 5 half-life duration of test D? Like, go look that up. It's not that hard to find the half-life of enanthate. And obviously it's based a bit on your own metabolism, your own administration practices. If you're doing sub-Q, IM, whatever you're doing, the type of oil that's in it. But at the end of the day, that is how long you need to wait for your HPTA to stop being suppressed to a point where introducing things like Sarms even makes sense in a post-psychotherapy context, where you're not just blasting your body with potentially toxic Sarms unnecessarily while you still have remnants of test in your system that are suppressing you. So that is my stance on the PCT thing. First cycle, Primobolan plus oxandrolone. He says, I wouldn't, and I also agree that is a horrible cycle. You have 2 DHT derivatives and nothing for estrogen. Your estrogen will be in the toilet, you will grow like shit, and you will have excessive neuro and cardiotoxicity and diminished a lot of functions that contribute to muscle growth. Like, this is, replace something in there with something that's a substrate for aromatase. You need an estrogen base in there of some sort. It's not just a test base. You are missing the estrogen component. What is the biggest myth concerning steroids you found out through experience was a lie? People underestimate how many athletes are on steroids. Yeah, I guess that is true. I kind of agree with that. It's like a lot of people want to give a lot of people the benefit of the doubt when in reality, a lot of guys are on shit. What steroid made you the happiest? Or is that feel good wear off pretty fast? I assume test. I'd say probably just test. Tren and Deca can make you feel horrible. Yeah, so 19 Nors are very hit or miss in terms of mood regulation and whatnot. Like, they can literally take you from feeling fine on test to feeling volatile as fuck, especially Tren, notorious for how horrible it is on your emotional reactions. The volatility in your emotional health in general is just like, you can't respond to situations well. I feel like there's a lot of interplay with how it impacts your sleep too, in terms of how you handle emotional stress and how volatile it makes your mood. Like, you can literally go from being like super like chilled out and like confident to all of a sudden 2 seconds later being like, the whole world's out to get me, and like you have massive anxiety and you're like suspicious of fucking everyone. You think everyone's out to get you or something. It's like, some of these drugs, the effect they have on your brain chemistry is pretty fucked up. But yeah, like, just broad spectrum test, like, you're not going to really beat that, except if you use maybe like dianabol. You could argue some of the like GABAergic signaling could sort of put you in like an elevated state above and beyond testosterone. And there are some compounds that some people just get like real feel-good effects from. Like, some of the DHT derivatives can drive like neurology to a significant extent and can upregulate, not upregulate your mood, but can increase your mood or improve your mood pretty significantly. But at the end of the day, most people are going to respond best to just like TRT, because that is what your body knows exactly what to do with, and it relies on. And when it's at peak, when your main androgen is like at the peak of where it is, like, that's probably where you're going to feel the most motivated, the most, all that kind of shit. Are the mood swings as severe as people make them out to be? Any rage? Depends on your personality. If you are mentally strong, you can control the way you feel regardless of your hormones and emotions. So yeah, that's pretty true, I guess. If you're like a dick normally, they're going to make you a way bigger dick. But if you're not, an extremely volatile and like tense person to begin with, it's not going to take you from being a chill dude to being like a fucking nutcase. So yeah, if you have a short fuse though, like, steroids will make it worse. Thoughts on taking EQ with test P and mass P, so propionate. John says, sounds good, bro. I don't think that sounds good. I do not. Well, that's such like a broad question. Like, thoughts on what? Like, what is the goal? Like, what are you trying to do? What kind of athletic pursuits are you even a part of? Like, is this just to gain muscle? Is this because you're trying to compete in a fucking Ironman? Like, what is this? Like, what are we doing here? So, thoughts on taking EQ with test P and mass P? In general, I think you're going to be crushing your estrogen into the ground. I think you're going to be driving your hematology panel too significantly for what you probably need. I think this is probably unnecessary and probably overkill in the estrogen inhibition context. So for me, I don't think it's good. And I would ask, like, what the fuck is this for? Like, what a broad question based on absolutely zero background information. This would be impossible to answer. What's your favorite bulking cycle? I've never had a successful bulk, my man. I'd say Deca plus test, because I never run Deca, but I never run Deca because of the prolactin. Let's see. Worst roid as per side effects. Tren and Deca because of prolactin can give you some horrible sides. I think the information around prolactin is severely misunderstood. Like, it's not really the mechanism behind how it derives certain side effects. Some of these 19 Nors is like not very well understood in my opinion, and people just haphazardly throw in like, oh, I'm taking fucking Deca, so I need to be on Caber. It's like, no, dude, it's not the best approach, and it's fucking toxic for your heart too. Which steroid will get me the most aggressive, like for a fight? I just needed to take it once. And what's the protocol with taking it? I think you were looking for cocaine, my friend. I'm not even gonna answer that one. Let's see. How has steroids affected your health and body? If you have a good diet and keep milligrams under 500, it won't be detrimental to your heart health. That is the biggest load of shit ever, dude. Like, you cannot say that with a straight face and be serious whatsoever. Like, that is definitely not the case. There are people that are dropping dead from heart disease without even taking gear. So if you think that adding in something that is literally proven to cause cardiac remodeling and other downstream negative things to your organs, obviously like actual testosterone replacement, I'm not really discussing, but up to like 500 milligrams of total anabolic androgenic steroids, including synthetics, is the answer here that he's giving. That is certainly not the case, dude. Like, if you're on 200 tests, 200 DECA, does that mean you're safe because you're at 400 milligrams a week and you can just run that indefinitely with no issues? No, definitely not. I will do one more and then I'm going to cut it off because this video is getting very long. What you think about teenagers taking ectosterone and turkesterone? All bad. It's a shame we got these guys trying to push that on the kids. Dude, please explain to me the mechanism of action and why an ectosteroid is bad. I'm not saying teenagers should be taking it. Like, presumably I don't know really anyone who's pushing it besides like a couple, like companies in the industry have products with it, turkesterone in it, but I don't really know anyone that has like a solo product like I do, especially complex in the way I did. So I've never intended to, push it on fucking anybody specifically. I just found it an interesting compound that has an interesting mechanism of action. Fortunately, is not HPTA suppressive, does not seem to exhibit any liver toxicity, and is promising as a potential adjunct for guys who are natural or guys on cycle. So, like, it's something I'm still exploring personally, and it's kind of fucking dumb when a guy has no idea about pharmacology who's trying to come in and say, it's a shame that somebody's trying to do this. Like, please explain in detail why, dude. Do you fucking know anything about what this is? I don't think so. I'm not trying to defend it necessarily either. Like, maybe there is some problem with it and maybe we'll find out down the line. But for now, seems pretty fucking promising. So I'm not, I wouldn't just fucking proactively just go shit on it without actually giving some research a chance, Let's see. Turkesterone is a natty supplement. How is it bad? I thought it doesn't fuck with your hormones and shit. So yeah, anyway, obviously he has no idea what the fuck it is. And that's totally understandable because this is a random, like, new obscure thing that not a lot of people know about, and there's not a lot of research anyway, so it's not like I can even make a claim about like it definitely won't do this. I'm just going based off of the anecdotes we have to date. So to me, it still looks fucking promising based on all the feedback we have on my end as well as from everyone else who's tried it. So just ignorant comment by John there, but anyways, that is where I'm going to cut it off. So anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplates.com, follow me on Instagram, and moreplates_more_dates, Facebook, Snapchat, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. My TRT clinic, Gorilla Mind nootropic formulas, Gorilla Mode pre-workout formulas I designed myself from scratch, and anything else I'm associated with, including my recommended lab test panels I designed myself, and anything else, all in the video description below. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.